But the light, the things are not on. It's
Okay.
on.
Mine is quite
Yeah,
loud.
everything's on.
All right. Good evening, the Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees regular meeting for Tuesday, January 24th, 2023 will come to order. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Stewart.
Here.
Trustee Monahan.
Here?
Trustee Kermy.
Here.
Trustee Buckley is excused. Clerk Vorba here. Treasurer Dorshevitz.
Here.
Supervisor Heising.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, let's, for Pledge of Allegiance tonight, how about Wendy Harless, Chairwoman of our Historic District Commission?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wendy. Before we start the rest of the meeting tonight, I would like to recognize the loss of one of our township employees. David Nelson was a 7-year employee of our Department of Public Works. He passed away on January 13th at only the age of 33. He is survived by a wife and daughter and 3 stepdaughters, and his daughter is just 3 years old. David was a valuable member of our DPW team, and he will be sorely missed by everyone. He demonstrated advanced skills as a mechanic, often repairing equipment and even making custom tools to help get the job done. He had just received his S1 water operator license from the state of Michigan in December. S1 is the highest state certification level for our type of water system, and that is a license that is very difficult to obtain and test for. David loved the outdoors, especially time spent with those he loved, his wife, children, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews. He enjoyed hunting, fishing, and four-wheeling, and was also part of the Wicked Jeep Club. So David was a great guy, and he had a series of medical issues that eventually took his life a couple weeks ago. So I'd like to just offer a moment of silence for Mr. Nelson. Thank you. Okay, need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Supervisor.
Yes.
I move the approval of the agenda for Tuesday, January 24th, 2023.
Motion is made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Monahan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approval of consent agenda. Questions, comments, concerns?
I move to take off the, move to the regular agenda, the electric vehicle charging stations item,
Okay,
to have some discussion on that.
sure. Anything else under consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk?
I move for the approval of the amended consent agenda for Tuesday, January 24th, 2023.
I believe this will require, okay, so Clerk Vorba has made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Monahan. This will require a motion because we do have a resolution.
Supervisor Heising.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Trustee Kermy.
Point of information, I'm sorry, what are we voting on?
We're voting on everything except
Except for
the
that.
item that you sequestered.
All right,
And
yes.
we'll take that up next.
Trustee Monahan.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. So now we are on the removed item, which is the electric vehicle budget adjustment for the EV chargers out here in front of Township Hall. Mr. Kermy?
Is this a proposal to purchase? There's no quotes in here, even though it says that in the resolution.
So the way this works is, this is basically it's I would consider it more like a sole source at this point, because DTE has a preferred vendor that they deal with, and they've selected the vendor through some kind of competitive process. The vendor is the actual charging station itself. We pay to get things started. We have to pay for the wires and the underground wires. We pay for the installation of the devices, and then they are to reimburse us.
So we fund the money, we front all the money first,
For the most part, yeah.
including the devices.
The DDA does.
The DDA,
Yeah.
that's us, but,
Yeah.
so the electrical contractor that's running the conduit, are we selecting them?
I don't.
The 22,000 to run the,
I think he was selected by Ken McDonald.
well, that's us.
Yeah.
All right, so the purchasing policy, we're supposed to have some quotes for this.
It depends on the dollar amount. I don't
No,
know
it's
if,
22,000.
I don't know if Ken needed to do that, but,
And then we have landscaping of 4,000. Did
Yeah.
we quote that? Do we have a
No.
where's the drawing?
I'm sure Ken has it, or we have it somewhere upstairs.
And then the other thing is, are you sure this is the right spot for these? We don't have people staying here a long time other than employees. What if we put them either at the hospital or the LA Fitness and
Yeah.
because I don't think they're going to get well used.
Well, it really boils down to a question of funding and also eligibility for funding. So we cannot put these machines at a private location like LA Fitness or the hospital. I think the hospital still has plans for doing EV chargers on their own at some point. I know Amazon Fresh has plans to install EV chargers there as well. It's funny, I'm so relieved that I can finally say Amazon Fresh now. And we have been offered by General Motors to install chargers at Township Park and also at the golf course. So this is just the start of what we think will be a more robust series of installations on public property. Also boiling down to a funding issue, this is consistent with the goals of the DDA, and the chargers would be out there towards the fire station. And there are people who are here long enough to take advantage of it. You don't have to be fully charged to get I don't know what a zap, a unit, whatever.
Kilowatt.
Kilowatt.
I mean, I can fill up on 5 kilowatts or 2 kilowatts, I suppose.
How are these people charged that are using it?
So what happens is that they are pulling electricity from our township system, okay? Then it is noted where the charge came from, and then what happens is we get reimbursed again by DTE, okay? So you charge your car, you use I'm assuming a credit card or a debit card. It is registered at that particular charging unit. It is township hall electricity. It's probably fire station electricity. We get that bill, and then we get reimbursed by DTE. What we can also do then is charge a convenience fee, just like we do in the treasurer's office for credit card charges. So we can charge a convenience fee that would then cover our any maintenance issues, any day-to-day maintenance or other incidental things that we could cover. We can't make a profit.
So what does the credit card pay for when the consumer puts the card in?
Yeah.
Who are they paying? DTE?
They're paying,
Or us?
ultimately, they're drawing electricity off of Plymouth Township's electric, they're tapping into
Our meter is metering it in.
They're tapping into our electric bill.
Right.
Okay, so our electric bill will go up. It's gonna go up, but it's more than likely something that we can self-meter or they can meter for us. And then we just get reimbursed by DTE.
But DTE's at the other end of the credit card transaction.
We sure?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
My concern is typically, we don't approve a purchase by a budget amendment. A city may do that, but not a township. We have to actually approve
Well, it's been approved by the DDA, and it was approved by
This is a
us when we
pass-through.
approved their budget.
Because this is DDA property.
well, but the DDA didn't approve
Yeah.
a quote, actual quote or a contract. We approve
I don't know
contracts.
if they approved the contract.
I don't see a
I don't know if there's a
contract.
contract, no.
But this is a $200,000 job.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have a contract with DTE and with the contractor that's doing
Yeah, we
the
have-
landscaping and the,
No.
what do you mean, no?
It's not necessary. I mean, this is a
I think it is
demonstration.
Pass-through.
It's a pass-through, it's a demonstration
Townships have to have
project.
everything approved by the board when you
Oh.
buy something.
No, it's already been approved by the DDA, and it's been approved in the DDA budget that you approved.
Yeah, but
We've
it
had this
doesn't
discussion.
work that way. Just because it's in the budget doesn't mean you can spend it.
We've had this discussion.
I know you've had it,
DDA,
and
so-
I think the finance director is not informed on how we buy things in townships.
Okay.
It's a city that maybe we
No.
can do that.
No.
I think we need to back off and just,
Okay.
let's tie up all the ends, and maybe there's some better ideas.
We're ready to proceed with this. The DDA has been fully advised. We've hired all the contractors. We're
The
ready to
DDA
go.
typically just,
No, come on,
well, I don't want these in the wrong spot.
they're not gonna be in the wrong spot.
All right,
They're-
so
they're
then now
where
the
we want them.
treasurer is going to have to collect money? What a hassle.
I'm not planning on collecting.
Well, yeah, you are, because you're gonna be getting, there's some.
It's gotta be like.
We don't have it mapped out. There's no flow chart of how the money's going. And wouldn't you get that sorted out before you pull the trigger?
Before they go live, yeah, absolutely.
So I would think there's a
I mean, we know
contract
what
with
we know at this point.
with DTE, there must be something we have to sign.
I think
I
they've done
don't-
this in a number of places, and this is kind of like the process they use.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a reimbursement with agreement with
it
DT.
doesn't seem financially sound or buttoned up.
Okay. All right, I mean, you've.
I move that we table it to the not table it, postpone it to the next meeting. We
Okay,
get-
well, if we do that, then we're now we can't do the budget adjustment for the DDA, so we've delayed it now until May, April. So.
Well, the DDA has already approved it, so we're just doing our due
DDA has not
diligence.
approved the budget adjustment, that's what you're doing tonight.
When are they meeting?
They meet on
February something.
February
13, it says.
13th.
That's after our.
That's before our next meeting,
What's the date of our next meeting?
February
14th.
14th.
Valentine's
Well,
Day.
I say we work the details out before we,
I don't know what details you're looking for, so.
how
I
the
would-
money's going to
you know.
flow, let's see the
It's-
contracts,
It is.
let's see the
It's almost-
quotes.
This is almost pro forma.
It
This
says it in the motion, Chuck, the DTE rebate revenue account, and there's the account number. So DTE will, yeah,
It's a little confusing when you read this. It says, request the board appropriate 156,000.
It's because it's already been approved.
Well, it was approved in the budget,
Yeah, yeah.
but it doesn't work that way. You have to approve the actual
We
expenditure.
buy all sorts of things,
But I hope not.
yeah.
And we ought to be using the police department appropriations thing. It would answer all the
No,
questions.
no.
No?
Okay,
He's made a
what's
motion.
your pleasure, guys?
So, no
You've made a
second
mo-
for
have you made
that?
a are you making a motion?
Yeah, I'm making a motion
To do
to
what?
postpone this to the next meeting, February 14th.
Is there a second?
All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Okay, motion fails. I need a motion on this item. Anybody in the public want to comment on this? Or save it for your presentation? I think you're going to. Okay. Need a motion.
You make the motion.
I can't find the document right now.
It's straight up there, Jack.
Okay, there we go.
All right, I move to approve a fund balance appropriation of $156,000 to the DDA capital outlay GL number 248-727-970.000, resolution 2023-01-2411 for the purchase and installation of 2 EV chargers at Township Hall, subject to future rebates from DTE for the cost of the chargers, the electrical line extension, which shall be deemed and to be recognized in the amount of $135,000 in DTE rebate revenue account 248-000-594.000, amending, increasing the fiscal year 2023 revenue budget by $25,000. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Clerk Vorba. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
trustee Kermy,
No?
trustee Stewart,
Yes.
trustee Monahan.
Yes,
Clerk Borba, yes. Treasurer Dorchevitz?
yes.
Supervisor Heisey?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. So now we are moving on to the public comment, limited to 3 minutes. Okay. I see our good friend, Mr. Charlin, back there. It's good to see you again.
Mr. Callahan?
Mr. Callahan's back there. Mr. Nightel is back there. That's great. Okay, Public comment, we're through with that. New updates, a new business. So tonight we have our annual presentation by both the Historic District Commission and the Environmental Leadership Commission. I think what's the order of preference there?
Environmental.
Environmental goes first. That's just random, we didn't do that deliberately, so.
Alphabetical.
Yeah, it's alphabetical, it's just the way we set it up. So Mary Ann McLaren is the chairwoman of the Environmental Commission. They've put together a really nice PowerPoint presentation for us tonight. I think what we should do is just have Mary go through it.
Yeah.
And then if we have any questions or comments for her, that would be great. We have Anita Yeager is here tonight. She is also a member of the Environmental Commission. Laura Haw, who is also our planner, is also a township resident, and she's also on the Environmental Commission. So that's why she's sitting in the back tonight, because you're not billing us. If you're not, she is here as citizen Laura, just helping out, because she knows a great deal about urban planning and things like that. So also with us is Sarah Wiesel, who is our newly minted Environmental Services Coordinator for the township. It was far better than calling her the Trash Lady.
Trash Lady.
We got, which really was an unfair moniker. So we much rather like your new title. Okay, take it away.
Okay. Is the mic on? Or
Should be.
Okay, it should be. Make sure I'm close enough to it.
Get as close as possible, so the
Yeah,
people
I
at
know,
home,
it doesn't
they always
pick up at
complain they
home.
can't hear.
I know when I watch at home. So which slide do you have there? All right. Went to the second one. All right. And our commission is charged with educating, partnering, and serving. Also shown on the bottom of this slide are organizations and businesses that we collaborated with in this past year. On the next slide. Is the list of our commission members and the terms of when they expire. The position of the commission is for 9 commissioners, so we have an opening. So if anyone or know of anyone that's interested in joining us, they can always fill out an application from the township website. And the next slide, please. Okay, in the spring, we.
Mary Ann, just a tip. Just keep your mouth right in front of the microphone. You
Okay.
don't have to look. Don't look around.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure the slides where I'm at.
Don't talk that loud. You just pull back a
Okay.
little bit, but stay.
All right.
Don't look around.
Okay.
'Cause then you fade out.
Yes, I know. So we're on slide
look
4.
now.
Looking around.
Don't look at us. Don't
We
laugh,
need to
Wendy.
be
You're
ready
next.
for
Okay.
this. Okay. In the spring, we organized the Tonkish Creek cleanup, which is the section between Ann Arbor and Joy Roads. We were assisted by the supervisor, DPW, is Sarah Vassal, and community volunteers. On the next slide. On May 10th, we joined with the supervisor, local Boy Scouts, and other guests to celebrate our township being designated as a Tree City USA and the raising of the Tree City US flag over the township hall. And next. In June, we partnered with PSEP and the supervisor in DPW to facilitate a mural at the township park. There was a drawing by Allison Treiler, who's a senior at Salem High School. It was painted on the cement slab that is just east of the wooden playscape. If no one has seen it, you should go over there and take a look at it. This was accomplished with the assistance of the Salem art teacher, Craig Lederman, other art students that came to paint, and all the supplies were donated by Home Depot. And then the next one, Environmental Leadership Commission and Friends of the Rouge. We have partnered with the Township Park Rain Garden. 2022 is the third and final year of support and maintenance from Friends of the Rouge. Moving forward, the Environmental Leadership Commission and community volunteers are responsible for its maintenance. On the next slide, we organized and managed the second annual Fall Colors event on October the 9th, held at the Four Seasons Pavilion in the Township Park. Thank you was given for planning assistance from Sarah Vassal, the park rangers, and a sponsoring grant from Bosch. On the next slide, toward the end of October, we teamed with DTE and Relief Michigan And again, with assistance with Sarah Vassal and volunteers from the community, and planted 20 trees in the township park. On the next slide, we developed and printed a sustainability tips at home handout for everyone that they can put on their refrigerator. There's also copies of that on the back table if anybody's interested in taking one home. On the next slide, we engaged with experts and evaluated opportunities for our community, which such topics of advocating for pollinators with natural plantings, investigate EV charging locations, and a forum from Consumers Energy on its future plans for renewable energy. On the next slide, just briefly, in 2021, we planted native species at the Lake Point Park on the east side of the parking lot. The completion of that planting was done in the spring of 2022. And our Arbor Day event in 2021 was the cleanup of Township Park. And on the last slides, we have listed some of our plans along with goals and aspirations for 2023. So if there's any questions.
So I'm just going to start off with questions, because I know Sarah Wiesel has some, is going to do a brief update on solid waste. Okay, and we have those flyers at our desks. We have been, I understand that we have been authorized again for this year for Tree City USA. So we'll apply for the stickers that we can put on the signs. They do want us, though, to have a separate Arbor Day event of some sort, and we will figure out what that looks like down the road. It'll probably be similar to what we did here last year.
Yeah, that was discussed at last night's meeting.
Okay.
And we have a couple plans in place.
Okay.
And Sarah was also part of that discussion with
Okay.
us.
So we'll collaborate a little bit more on that later. I think the Fall Colors event, to me, would have been the ideal Arbor Day event, and that is now the second year we've done that. We got a great turnout this year. We had great weather, and our township out-of-pocket expenses, I think, are minimal, if non-existent. I think Bosch
That grant was exceptional.
Yeah,
It let us
Bosch
do a lot of things
paid
that
for
we
everything.
wanted to do.
Yeah, so that was great. I was also blown away by the tree planting that we did here in the fall. That turnout was phenomenal. Again, we had great weather. I know Plymouth Kiwanis Club that Chuck is in. You guys had a great turnout. We just had a great overall community turnout and got the word out. So those were all important things. As I look to this calendar year, unbeknownst to us, Wayne County Parks, along with the Rouge Alliance and Friends of the Rouge, have obtained quite a bit of federal money to clean up Wilcox Lake and Phoenix Lake. So I attended, I think Mary Ann, you were there. I attended the meeting that they had in Old Village a couple weeks ago. Phenomenal turnout, standing room only. So there's a great deal of community interest for this, and that was basically just Old Village, Plymouth City people. So what we're working on right now is another public town hall information session to be held at the Phoenix Mill in Plymouth Township that would be open to everybody, but with a focus more on Plymouth Township and Northville Township people, because Phoenix Lake is one half Plymouth Township, one half Northville, and then Wilcox Lake is basically 2/3 city, 1/3 township, Plymouth Township. So there's a great deal of volunteer opportunities there, fundraising opportunities that we can help out with if needed. I know that they're also looking for equipment and other support that maybe you guys can find donations for. So, but that's something I think that should be like our big lift for this year in terms of volunteer effort, would be that project, because that's going to be a big deal.
Right. I mean, we had some ideas, and this was put together at the end of last year, and then this kind of materialized this month.
Yeah.
So it will change our focus. And I believe, Chuck?
Yeah,
did
I have
he
a couple of questions. One is this card you made on sustainability guide. It is fantastic. maybe we should put it in our newsletter and on our website. And if we get any extra money, maybe print some more to put it in the rack.
We can put it in the rack. We have more. Those were the ones
Because
that were.
these are fantastic.
Yeah.
School kids would love those.
Yes, they
Those are
would.
great ideas. They could be incorporated in your daily life. The question I have is about, anecdotally, I notice a lot of cardboard not being recycled, especially from the holidays. Many people are unwilling maybe to put it in the bin. From an education standpoint, that's something longer term you could work on with Sarah Wiesel.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of that low compliance some days
I
when
know.
It's highly variable. And there is a big demand for cardboard right now.
I know there is. You know, I know there's been things in the newsletters, the monthly township newsletters and that. And how do you get people to read that and do it? That's always the challenge.
And then a money question. Do you have a budget from the township or is everything donated?
Everything's donated.
Great.
That's why the grant from Bosch for the fall color events was very critical and very helpful, because it also let us have some things that carried over, like the sustainability handout and things like that. There was enough printed so that we still have more that we can distribute.
Is that grant completely used up?
Yes, but there's also a grant, again, that we can apply for this year.
We also partner with Friends of the Rouge. They've given us money in the past for projects. We just did the Friends of the Rouge winter stonefly search this past weekend. So, you know, anything that they do that we can collaborate with, we always do it, because we don't have a budget. These folks in Historic District Commission, they're all volunteers. They work for free, and they love what they're doing, so.
Would you be willing to, when you have an event, to send out a notice directly to the board?
We've
I know you do that.
attempted to
Yeah.
do that. I don't know how well the communication went. Because we will have a speaker for February's also Environmental Leadership Commission.
You have a speaker?
Us, yes. And it has to do with, I'm not sure of the details. Another commission member is responsible for that speaker, but it's the current supervisor for for Canton Township. They did an experimental food composting program last year, and we want to hear how that went and how it was facilitated, and to see whether it's something that we could try to introduce into Plymouth Township.
Well, we have something that's voluntary that you
It's
pay for.
you pay for.
In Plymouth Township now.
Yes, yes, yes. And I believe we're going to try March or April. The representative from GFL will come and explain a lot of the ins and outs of waste and recycling.
I think it would also be good for GFL to start donating funds as well. We give them a lot of money, and
We'll have to ask them
I
that.
know they want to be more active in the community, so this would be a good way to do it.
Yes,
Also, too, Chuck, you had mentioned our website. Our new website does have a specific box at the bottom, just dedicated to the Environmental Leadership Commission. So, you know, as things come up, just work with us.
We'll have
and
to get it
and
to
we'll
you
put 'em
to
up
get
there.
it
I mean,
on
right
there.
now, I think it's more of a placeholder, but,
sure, gladly, you know.
yes. Anything else we can think of? Again, thank you all on the Environmental Commission for your
very much.
efforts. You meet monthly?
Yes. Thank you. Actually, 11 months. We don't meet
Okay,
in
all right.
December. But yeah, we find out we really need to, because things keep coming up and develop, and things that need our input or our reaction and planning. So yeah, it's, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Wendy Harless is the chairwoman of our Historic District Commission. They don't meet every month.
No, we meet every other month.
You meet every other month.
Yes. So our next meeting is in February.
Okay,
I don't know, can you guys hear me?
pull it up as far as you can.
Can you hear me?
Speak a little louder.
Okay, I'll
And
try to
don't look
speak up.
anywhere.
I I do need to reference my slides because I only brought notes about one particular slide.
Okay, okay.
So we have two new commissioners. Jack Dempsey stepped down, excuse me, at the end of his term last year, so Ben Ike replaced him. And then Zach Funk moved, so he's no longer in the community. So we have a new replacement for him as of last month. And that is Stephen Bassett. I've only met him once, but I'm sure he's going to be great. So next slide. So our big project for 2022 was producing this Historic Sites of Plymouth Township brochure. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to see it. If you have not, there's some at the back that I brought with me tonight, but you can also pick them up here. We have them at the library as well for people in the community to see. This was so much fun. We did, a map so everybody can find these different locations. Gray's Greenhouse, I thought they were going to do cartwheels. They were so happy that we put them in here. There's a picture you can see right there of Gray's Greenhouse in 1930.
Is that looking west or which one?
That is looking east.
East.
Lily Road is dirt, if you can see that.
Yes.
In there. So, yeah, they have a wealth of fantastic historic photos of the greenhouse and Gray's family that they let us borrow. So, there's also Richard Charlin, who's in the back. He's contributed a couple of photos that are not in here because we didn't highlight his property, although it is historic. He has two barns. The new barn, Richard, I think the new barn was built in 1919, is that right?
No,
When was the new barn built?
well, turn of the second, the first one's about 1850, I think.
About the time you were born?
You're mean.
Tough crowd tonight.
Yeah, so this is also available online for anybody who, can't make it to the township or the library to get a printed copy. You can read it online, and it is ADA compliant.
Yeah.
So
That's on our website somewhere?
it is,
Okay.
yes. As a
Under
PDF.
Historic Commission?
Historic District Commission,
good.
yes, yeah. So, some things that we're working on for this year, we're doing a historic marker that's going to be at the new Triangle Park. And those photos that Richard contributed for us, they're going to be on the new marker. We've pretty much got the text worked out. It's finding historic photos to put on it. But we're also mentioning Miller Woods, which they were thrilled that we're giving them a little shout out. And we're going to talk about some of our native plants too. So I'm sure the Environmental Committee is happy to hear that.
Tell me more about Triangle Park. Is that what we now call Gulfview or the Triangle Park at Ann Arbor Road and Ann Arbor Trail?
The Gulfview one.
All right.
Yeah, where they're putting in the pathways and the pavilion that used to be in front of Kmart that was removed when it became the hospital, that's going to be relocated over there. And we've indicated to the township where we would like to have our historic marker, and it would be on one of the pathways so that as people are there.
So what's historic about the Gulfview Park?
Well, we're talking more about the history of the township in general,
Okay.
not specifically that property, but like I said, we mentioned things like Miller Woods, which is right there close by. I think you could even walk to Miller Woods from that park.
Yeah.
And we talk about our history of agriculture, that we were primarily an agricultural community, probably right up until the 1950s. When we really expanded with 275 and, doing more homes than agriculture.
Right.
So the marker will talk about that.
What will the marker be made out of?
Well, it's like a laminated color type of thing. It's not like the marker that we did out front here where it's a bronze. It's more of,
It's like what's at Daisy.
exactly. If you've ever walked down Union Street to the Daisy development, there's one right in front of there. And it's the same company, Spectrum Signs, that did that. We got quotes from them for producing it. And that one was put in, I want to say 2012, I think is when we did that one. And it's held up really well.
Daisy Wall one, yeah.
Yeah, it's held up very well to the elements. So that's we're hoping for something, obviously, that will endure, but also be informational for people, so they can learn a bit of the history for Plymouth Township.
Will you review the words with us
Oh,
beforehand?
yes, yeah, the more eyeballs that look at it, the better, because once you've looked at something repeatedly for so long, you start to gloss over things and you do easily miss things. So yes, we can provide it to the trustees if you would like to see it, but right now, we're really trying to gather photos. So we're asking people within the community if they have photos like Richard Charlin, like Gray's Greenhouse, and we're working with the Plymouth Historical Museum as well. We work really closely with them. So another project that we're working on is a marker for the Elks property. And we're trying to research that one. It looks like there was a candy factory there, believe it or not, which is surprising to me. And then there was like a steel stamping manufacturer there at some point.
Steel
Well,
processing.
it wasn't a stamping, it was like steel processing that pickled steel, cleaned it, so that then it would be cut and shipped.
And we're still researching that, but that one would be more of a marker like what we have out here. That one would not have photographs on it. And that is to be paid for by the developer.
All right, that was called Pilgrim Steel at one time.
Yeah, so we're researching that so we can get more history on that
Are we
site.
going to talk about the sign for the Purcell property too, or tonight?
You can talk about that one. That also would be paid for by the developer. We have verbiage for that, but as we understand it, the development is kind of on hold at the moment, so
Yes.
we're focusing on other projects right now.
So remember, Board, that the developer, Mr. Suave, has promised as part of our permit approval with him that he is going to provide us with $20,000 for a historic marker at Congressman Purcell's old site on North Territorial. Now, that marker would I think would be more specific to Purcell, the man?
Yes,
Yeah,
in the house that was there, the mid-century modern
Yes.
home. But that also would include a bench and a place for people to rest as they walk along the sidewalk there, which would be a really nice
Now, would that be a
addition.
state historic marker or one of these other homemade
No,
ones?
this would be one that we create, which would be less expensive.
The other marker that I think you're familiar with now is, which I think should be a state marker, is the one that we would work with Northville on and put that roughly where they have a new, on 5 Mile, there's a new, Northville Lumber is moving from the city, and they're going to relocate to 5 Mile in the MITC corridor, right at the northeast corner of Napier and 5. This is not a secret or anything. They're going to build a 100,000 square foot building.
Napier and 5 or Ridge and 5?
No, Napier.
Napier and 5. I mean, on the 5 Mile side, because Napier is a mess. I mean, it's potholes. But behind where Northville Lumber would go are the railroad tracks. And it was back there, I don't know what year it was, but there was a absolutely horrible train accident that killed at least 150 people. And it was really one of the worst disasters in Michigan history that occurred there. So that's just something we'd like to incorporate at some point in the future, and I think a state of Michigan one would be appropriate.
And that one, there was recently an article, I think it was in the Rock?
It was in the Rock,
One
I
of-
think it was in the Rock, yeah.
Yeah, and the article mainly focused on that the Historical Museum just inherited a ton, just a wealth of information about not just the wreck, but the railroads in general.
Yeah, the Pierre Marquette is what it was
Yes.
called.
Pierre Marquette,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, so that was a head-on collision between a passenger train coming from Ionia and a train leaving Plymouth, and they believe it was a clerical error, that they thought the train had passed already, and there were some laws actually enacted to prevent similar disasters from happening again. It really was a landmark case, for sure, yeah. And definitely worthy of a historical marker. I think a lot of people don't understand that that's where that happened
No,
out
they don't
there.
understand it, especially since it's always called the Salem train disaster, and it did not it happened in Northville Township, and just memories fade, and it's, when you think about what a disaster that was, I mean, if you compare it to like Northwest Flight, 266, I mean, there's a giant marker for that disaster as well, and I think this is the least that the state can do to acknowledge this tragedy.
And honor the memory of the people who lost their
was it?
lives in that accident. It was the early 1900s.
Early 1900s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a Sunday excursion
It
train.
was.
Yeah.
They were a bunch of people from a business in Ionia or the Lansing area, and they were on a train I think they were going to Belle Isle for like a family corporate
Right.
picnic and gathering, and they were, ugh, it was horrible. And, trains back then were built out of wood. They were shattered, and it was a disaster of epic proportions. And,
Yeah.
we didn't have this was all farmland out here, so there was no there was no EMS, there was no life flight or anything
A
like
lot
that.
of the residents of
Yeah.
Plymouth Township went to try to help,
Yeah, yeah.
to see if there was anything they possibly could do.
Yeah.
The pictures are horrific.
Horrible,
They're
yeah.
just awful, yeah.
So,
So when you do the Purcell marker, I recommend you talk to his children.
Okay.
I don't know if they live here anymore, but they're available to talk to. Because they
That
will
would be
probably provide some things that people may have forgotten, or have some records that may not be completely available in the historical museum or something.
Thank you, that's a good suggestion.
John
Thank you.
Stewart will help too.
Well, Carl Purcell was a moderate Republican state senator, 16-year
There you go. Wow.
16-year U.S. congressman.
Just had to throw that
But
softball
more,
right over
more
there.
importantly, if any of these sites would be considered for a state marker, I know a good colleague of yours, Beth Stewart, who would gladly assist you, because 38 years ago, we got a marker in front of our house. And I think the supervisor brings up a point. We may have a couple of sites here worthy of a state marker.
That would be fantastic.
Full time.
You got a marker in front of your house?
No, his
His
office.
office on Main Street.
My law office is
37
100 years old. The chief has been there and verified. It's all oak woodwork inside, and
I believe you.
it was a Sears catalog
Thought you
oak
meant your
house.
house in Lake Point.
No, my law
That's
office.
a historical marker for the
Where my kids say
architecture.
I'm always there.
Gotcha.
Okay, so next slide.
Okay.
You were there once.
So
we've all
our
been
work at Shearer Cemetery is ongoing. There are photos here that you'll see. We had the state come out and they attempted to do ground penetrating radar, but unfortunately the equipment malfunctioned and they were not able to get any information. So they are coming back. I've talked to Dwayne. He's looking at his calendar, and they can actually do it with snow on the ground. So it doesn't have to be warm weather. But what we're trying to accomplish with that is to find out exactly where the graves are located, because we don't know. When Darren Sylvester and his class went in there in the early 2000s and started cleaning it up, they created that path that is there now. So we don't know if we're actually walking on people's graves. So we're trying to find out where the graves are located, how many people are still buried there, because our research is showing that a lot of these people were actually moved to Riverside Cemetery or to other locations as families moved out of the community. It was their custom to dig up the dead and take them with them. It's just very difficult for us to understand in 2023. I would never do that. But, so we're trying to determine how many people are there, and then ultimately, we would like to do a historical marker for that site as well. We would like to do a new bench in there, because the bench that the students put in was wood, and it's really shaky. It needs to be
We're
removed.
ready to give you a bench that's
We're
highly
like I
durable,
said-
made out of recycled materials.
Yes, we're just trying to figure out, we don't want to put the bench on top of somebody's grave. So
Yeah, that's-
we're trying to figure out where the bodies literally are buried.
Yeah.
Will you let me know when you're doing this? I'd like to witness it. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And they provided this service to us for free because they're doing it as a training exercise for their new people who are on staff. So this is no cost to the township. And hopefully, we're going to get some really good information.
And Wendy, with respect to Shearer, we're willing to work with you on a new sign. And we'll spend money on that.
That would be great.
And then we did try unsuccessfully, but I'd like to try again, hopefully this year, to secure an easement on the north end of the cemetery that would be for the exclusive use of the township and our personnel to do maintenance activities, but nobody else would have access to it. And
That would be great if you could work out some kind of agreement with the homeowner.
That
I
has a
have-
flat grade entrance, right?
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah,
this-
versus going up the steep hill from either side, yeah. And actually, because it is a hill, that's why they chose it to be a cemetery. That was typical of the time. They would go for the highest ground to be.
Drainage.
Yes. But also what we've learned is, of course, the headstones that are there have all been moved. They like fell down, the students dug them up, they moved them, people stole some, they came back. It's a crazy thing. But what we learned is when they would bury somebody, typically they wanted them to face east. And there's only one headstone right now that's really facing true east. And that was a religious thing, that when Jesus Christ would rise up, he would come from the east, was their belief. So they wanted you to be able to rise up and greet him as he returned. So a bit of interesting information there.
Okay.
So we have, you'll see on here, we've actually found some rare flowers that, there's trillium, there's bloodroot, there's the Michigan native yellow poppy, which is very difficult to find in Wayne County. The University of Michigan has no locations in Wayne County that have the Michigan yellow poppy. But I reported to them that we do have it. And then they came back and said, we'll make sure that it has this particular type of a pod and this particular type of stamen. And like, they wanted to make sure it was the yellow poppy. And it is. So we'd like to eventually also do some type of signage for the native plants so that people know, what we have there, because it really is a unique thing.
Okay. Thank you. Next.
So this one was a story that broke really during COVID, and we did put it in the township newsletter. I brought something to read because the township newsletter was really limited on space, and this is such a crazy story. This came about because somebody came to the township and inquired, what is the history of this house? And, I'd always looked at it and I thought it was quite old, but I really wasn't sure how old it was. So it turns out it was altered in the 70s. That's why it doesn't quite look like a Greek revival, which is what it should be. But we worked in conjunction with the Plymouth Historical Museum, and they believe this house was built sometime between 1852 and 1854 by Thomas Gordon. And this is right there on the border of Livonia and Plymouth on Ann Arbor Trail. So for whatever reason, Thomas Gordon decided he didn't want to live there anymore. So he sold to Leroy Farwell in 1856. And as we were trying to research this during 2020, we couldn't get into the museum. I was calling Ellen Elliott. I'm like, what can you get for me? Because she was like the only person that could get in there to the archives. We're furiously looking online. All of these maps exist. The map is right up there. It's from the 1860s. And I could see online that the house was there. I've circled it. And then it had Leroy Farwell. So I knew the owner's name, but I didn't know anything about him. So I started trying to Google Leroy Farwell. And Jack Dempsey, who was on the HDC at the time too, was also sequestered at home, and we're like texting each other back and forth with what we found. And so he's a huge Civil War buff, and so he knew all the sites to go to. And as I'm Googling, it comes up, Leroy Farwell was the father of Reuben Farwell. And I was like, what makes Reuben so special? They had 7 sons. Why is Reuben coming up in Google? So, like I said, Jack and I are texting each other back and forth, and he texted me, are you sitting down? Because you're not going to believe this. When the Civil War broke out, 3 of the Farwell boys signed up to preserve the Union: Joseph, Crawford, and Reuben. Reuben enlisted in Company H, which was the 1st Cavalry, and on August the 16th of 1861, at the age of 22, he marched off to war. So Reuben sees action at 2nd Bull Run, Gettysburg. He's in Grant's 40 Days campaign. On October the 11th of 1863, Reuben sustains an injury to his left foot while he's fighting under the command of General Custer at Brandy Station in Virginia. Reuben is sent to Armory Square Hospital in Washington, D.C., where he meets and he becomes friends with a man who is there to help and comfort hospitalized soldiers. Walt Whitman had traveled to Washington, D.C. to find his brother, who was reported killed in action. After locating his brother, who was still very much alive, Walt remains in the Capitol. While caring for injured soldiers, Walt Whitman befriends many of these scared and injured boys who are far from their homes. Reuben is ultimately discharged back to the front. After the war, the two men corresponded for many years. Their letters still exist, and they can be found transcribed online. All you got to do is Google Reuben Farwell and Walt Whitman, and they'll just start popping up. It seems that all the Walt Whitman Society people know about Reuben, but I can't believe nobody in Plymouth knew that this man was from Plymouth. The house that he lived in when he came here as a boy on the Michigan frontier still stands. After he moves back to Plymouth after the war, we believe he lived with his folks in that house for a little while, but he eventually buys his own farm, which was located in Livonia. He marries, and they have a daughter. So Reuben passed away in 1833, and at the request of Reuben's widow, Walt Whitman personally pens a letter to the Commissioner of Pensions to support her claim to receive a pension for Reuben's military service. And that letter is right there. It's, like I said, it's online. You can find all of this stuff. Walt Whitman named Reuben Farwell in his book, Memorandum During a War, and I immediately had to get on Amazon and order that book, and he is indeed named in there. Reuben and many of his family members are buried at Newburgh Cemetery, which is just down the road from this original house where they began their new lives on the Michigan frontier. And I have been out there to find their graves and photograph them. The really exciting development this year that came about is we found a picture of him. And that is Reuben, and this photo resides in the Duke University archives, which they apparently inherited a lot of Walt Whitman's personal papers. So this photo was Walt Whitman's. And in their correspondence, it says that Walt actually sent an autographed photo to Reuben, and I would love it if we could find that photo. Wouldn't that be amazing? But just a great example of the history that we have here in Plymouth Township that a lot of people don't know about. I've lived here for 53 years, and I had no idea that we had a connection to Walt Whitman.
What year did Reuben die?
He passed away in 1883. And he, like I said, he is buried with Crawford, his brother. His dad is there, his wife, his daughter. They're all in Newburgh Cemetery. It's right there on Ann Arbor Trail.
Sure.
Okay, next photo, or next slide. So this house on North Territorial, according to township tax records, was built in 1833. And we are currently working with the family to research the history of the house. We would like to ultimately do a historic marker for this house. It's kind of been one of our long-term goals is that we would do historic markers for homes, you know, as long as the homeowner was willing to let us, number one, look at the house to make sure that definitely it could be of that age, and to work with us on doing a historical marker. And then they have to put the historical marker somewhere where people can see it. I was involved with the AAUW Landmarks Committee for many years. And we would do a really nice bronze plaque to commemorate one house every year. And unfortunately, not everybody displayed their plaque. So, you know, the AAUW would pay quite a bit of money for that plaque, and then it would just disappear. So we would like to make it a requirement that if you would like to have a historical marker for your home, that you would display that marker in some way so that people know that you have a historic home. So we're currently working with the homeowners. We've done a tour of the house. I believe it definitely is of that age. It has the log timbers underneath with the bark still on it. Like if you go down in the basement and you look under the house, these logs were cut out of the Michigan wilderness to build this house. It has been altered. Any house that you find, like the Farwell house or this house that's been around for 150, 160 years, has had some work done to it, of course. It's not going to look as it originally did. But the really nice thing is you can see that second photo. The homeowners have this fabulous book that goes back all the way to when the property was bought from the U.S. government. And I took a couple of pictures, that's one there. But like I said, we're working with the homeowners, so the research is ongoing. I need to go back next month and sit down with Bree. And I'd like to create a spreadsheet that shows, here's who owned the house from this time to such to that time and who bought it next. And then try to research some of the homeowners to see what did they do in the community. What were they, the early ones, obviously farmers, but we just like to do more thorough research on this house. One of the really nice connections you'll see that I've got up here is the guy who bought it in, I think it's, yeah. He bought it in 1855, and he's the son of Jeremiah Angel, who is in Sheriff Cemetery. And through our research, we believe he's still there. And I think that's it. Is there one more slide?
One more slide?
Thank you.
Yeah. Here we go.
Thank you very much.
So I have a question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
In 2027 is the Plymouth Township Bicentennial.
Yes.
So we are, that is actually one of our board goals for this year. I don't know how it's going to rank, if it's going to be a high priority or nobody cares, but I would like to put a commission together of some sort that we could have activities and do unusual special events and things like that for the bicentennial, so just keep that in mind. One thing
Can
I
we
would
make
like
it
to
part
do,
of this?
oh, for sure. I mean, I think these guys are going to get drafted into that effort immediately, but that's something that you guys can start working on,
Yeah, and we have talked about that independently, that the
Sure.
200th anniversary is coming up and everybody is super excited about it. So yes, we would definitely love to help plan that.
The barn where the Plymouth Township Board first met.
It's barn.
That's Tibbetts
It's
Barn.
in here.
It's still here. Do you have any relationship with the owner of that property?
Many, many years ago, as the Plymouth Preservation Network, we did a tour of the house and the barn.
That was
And-
Judge Garber at the time owned it?
No, I don't recall the man's name off the top of my head, but I do have his email still. Yeah, I would like to contact them and see if possibly we could do something there. Not a lot of people realize, because it sits so far back from the road, that is the original place where everyone met in 1827 to decide on what the name of our community would be. But also, the building that is just in front of that, we believe is of the same age, because it also has the hand-hewn logs with the bark still on it, and it's all vinyl sided, so that you would never know that it has that kind of age to it. The house, we think, is not as old. There might be a portion of it that is from that 1820s era, but when the Tibbetts family came here, they more than likely built some type of, I don't want to say lean-to, but something very rudimentary, because there was nothing, so they had to have an immediate shelter. And it was actually, one of the sons came out and scoped out the property. The government had said, you get this portion and, that part. So they had to come out and literally survey it and stake it. And then the rest of the Tibbetts family came out once they had built some kind of maybe very crude log cabin, and everybody lived in there until they could build the house and the barn and everything.
That house has some kind of a marker on it.
That one, I think, is an AAUW one. Yeah.
Well, so here's my dream. If it's safe, and if we could pull it off, I would love to have a board meeting in that barn to commemorate the bicentennial. We can all dress up in,
No smoking, though.
no smoking.
Not no wooden structure, no.
Maybe we could have some moonshine under the table or something, but we can all dress up in period clothes and, poofy hats and all that good stuff.
Charlotte's got some, don't you?
Charlene, you got some uniforms we can wear? Poofy clothes, yeah. Poofy shirt I can wear, yeah. So anyway, that's something I think that would just be cool. And anyway. Okay, any other questions for Ms. Harless here?
Thank you.
Thank you,
so much.
great presentation.
Thank
You
you.
guys are doing a great job. Again, these are all volunteers. You get no money.
No, we don't.
No help.
It's a great group of people, and, I will say I really enjoy it. Everybody is a delight to work with, so thank you.
And the commission was the brainchild of trustee Jack Dempsey, so it's all his fault, as I like to say. And he came up with the idea, and we worked with him on drafting the ordinance, and that's another part of Jack's great legacy in the community. Again, thank you very much. Sarah, just real quick update on solid waste for this year, which is good news.
Yes, so the handout that you received, I just wanted to touch base on, those are our numbers from 21 and 22. And the big one that we want to look at is that our recycling percentage went up 3%, which is great, from 15% to 18%. We are below average for Michigan. Michigan's at about 19%, so 2022. Michigan's at 22%. 19% for 2022.
Okay.
As a whole.
Do you know how that compares on a per capita basis? Because if it's just as a proportion of overall waste, it could be a little bit misleading, right? So do we recycle more than others or less than others?
Yeah, well, this is the percentage of, so these are the waste stream totals, so
Right.
based on how much waste is collected from Plymouth Township, that's what
Right.
these percentages are based on.
But my question is, if it, 2,457 tons for a community of our size, is that lower than others, about the same as others, or higher than others? Well,
Tonnage-wise, I don't know
Yeah,
what, but
That'd be a good
percentage-wise,
for them.
if that makes, yeah.
Because I think we've said over the years that we had a really high, when it comes to, the actual amount of recycling, we had, very high participation. But when they come in, when GFL comes, when is that gonna be?
When they come with.
GFL comes to,
Is
to
GFL
one of
gonna-
to the commission meeting, you mean?
That's to be determined.
Are they
Yeah.
coming to our meeting?
No.
Oh, I
There's
thought
no
you meant they were
plan.
coming
The
to our
Environmental
meeting.
Leadership Commission meeting.
They're supposed to go to the environmental commission.
When they come to the environmental commission, it'd be interesting to know how much of the matter that is placed into the bins actually ends up getting recycled and how much ends up in the
Yes,
landfill.
I have been working with GFL to try and get some of that data. They're only going to be able to report out the numbers from the recycling facility as a whole. They're not, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they're going to be able to tell me that 85% of the recycled materials that come to the materials,
And that would
you
be,
know,
yeah, I mean, that's better.
but they're not
than-
going to be able to tell us that 85% of Plymouth Townships.
I mean, that's better than, that's better
Yes.
than nothing.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm curious to know how much of the stuff that goes into the bins actually ends up recycled. Because I know a couple of years ago, there was no market globally for recycled corrugated cardboard, and so they were trashing it. If not, they were just dumping it in the trash a couple of years ago.
That's not happening
They
now.
would not tell you, yeah, they would tell you that that's not happening right now. The tough part right now is plastics, so
Yeah.
I think
No,
there's a very limited market for that, and the cost to recycle it, and so.
There's a new law. How will that affect us? It was passed in December.
What's the new law?
So I don't know. It was passed in December. Kurt announced it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if it really impacts us. It's more of something involving landfills.
The
more than
landfills,
anything
yeah, the
else.
operations that they do out there.
I think
not-
I think what they're gonna do probably is increase tipping fees at the state level, which will be passed down to us. It's a backdoor tax, basically, but, I really don't know all the details, because I think it impacts more landfill operations.
Then I also included our battery recycling. So we're doing a lot of battery recycling, which is great. And then simple recycling, we still have the textile program in the township. They don't give us pounds or anything like that, but just how many collections. And we earn 5 cents per collection. So we made about $15 last year. But it's saving things from the landfill, so that's the goal, right?
Okay, awesome.
Anything else? Good?
Thank you, Sarah. Could you turn
Thank you
off?
very much. All I hear from my constituents are, I can't believe they take everything.
Yeah. Oh, they do a good job.
And then could you just turn off the microphone there when you're done? There should be 2 of them. Red light, is there another light there?
Red
On the
light
bar?
should be red, the one you're talking into.
Okay. Yeah, the mics are all hot now for some reason. Okay. All right, I'll sit further back. Public comment? No? Okay. Board comments, let's start with John Stewart.
If I may, I want to encourage, first of all, I want to thank the people of Plymouth Township for allowing me to serve as a trustee. In 23 hours, I want to encourage everybody to listen to the state of the state. We are in a very present day unique situation. The state budget has more than doubled in the last 20 years. We have a budget surplus of over $9 billion. If that continues to increase, there will be an automatic income tax reduction of 4.25 to 4.05. Issues that should be addressed tomorrow night are unemployment, the earned income tax credit, and the repeal of the retirement tax. I hope all of you will listen and become involved. Our recent magazine sums it all up. Township Focus, public involvement in township government. I mean, I even hear from people who said, here I go again, complimenting the police or the chief. The police chief was out in the community. He talked to me, but more importantly, he listened to me. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Bob, how are we doing on the tax situation?
We're collecting about the same rate as we have the last 2 years, and so we got 3 weeks left, I think, until February 14th is the cutoff date, but things are going well.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Jerry?
Everything is fine in the clerk's department.
Okay. Audrey?
Everything's fine in my life too.
Awesome. Chuck Kermy?
When you set the homeowners association annual meeting date,
Yeah.
please tell us when that is
Yeah,
going to be.
I think we always do.
And then Board of Review, the new member, have they been trained?
I don't know that for sure. I know that MTA has offered training statewide, and I know that Tracy and her crew at the assessing office is very diligent about that, and I am 90% certain that he has undergone that training. Plus, he's also the alternate, so he needs to be trained, and I'm sure he has been, but he's also the alternate, So.
Any new news on truck routing, Ridge, Beck, whatever?
No, not yet. It's.
Some action has been taken,
Still a work in
or they're
progress.
waiting, the county is waiting, or the police department's waiting?
We've been doing additional training of officers on truck weights and things of that nature, but as far as routing, we don't have the critical mass yet of trucks. We know that the trash trucks going to the landfill in Salem are going to be with us. And they're still taking Beck, and they're still taking 5 Mile. As far as the gravel hauling trucks coming from Salem, we do still get them on Ridge. Ridge is still a road that is qualified to take that under county ordinance. It's a Class A road, and trucks can travel on that. And a lot of these trucks are going to the 275 project. There's a lot of earth moving going on there. There's also construction in Canton. Right now, I just read an article that they've issued 4,500 permits now for new homes and condos and apartments. So, there's still a lot of economic activity around here.
We should ask them though, how is it that in Northville Township, they were able to put up a sign that says no trucks going north on Ridge? Or they just
Because-
bought a sign?
No, because while they did get county's permission to do that, it was also because they were going through a residential and a school area. And I don't know what the condition of 5 Mile is once you pass, not 5 Mile, 6 Mile. You know, I don't know what the road condition is. Once you get past Ridge, I think it becomes mostly dirt, or it changes over to dirt at some point. So it was not a Class A road, and they were grinding up the road there. So there were a lot of differences on that, in
Weight
that
limits,
case.
should we revisit weight limits?
Well, I was recently at the Conference of Western Wayne meeting where it was mentioned that with the Democrat majority now in Lansing, that they would take a fresh look at weight limits. But I don't know what's going to happen with that. The trucking industry has been very, very powerful in this state, and they're not, I don't think they're really, I would be surprised if they address that issue, but
Could you kindly please end on a very positive note?
I'll
The
try.
occupying of the Durr building with a high-tech industrial contracting service?
Sure. So the Doer building, which is on Plymouth Road across from Blackwell Ford, has been a vacant, ugly building for quite some time. It was
2014.
2014. Now, the office building in front still looks pretty sharp, but the factory in the back has been in rough shape. We do have a company that apparently has purchased that building now, and they are a reputable company out of Sterling Heights. And they manufacture, refurbish, install heavy machinery and equipment, mostly for the auto industry. So I believe they must have some kind of exclusive contract with one of the big three. So that'll be jobs, more economic development for us. So are we all set?
No, they're going to keep the building, or they're going to raise it?
Don't know for sure yet. We have not received their plans. We just found out about 48 hours ago, so they're going to submit their plans to us hopefully very soon. We'll see what they're going to do. But they like the building has good bones still, and I think they're very interested in what happens in the back, the large factory floor area. There are decent offices in the front, but I don't know, in this day and age with, people not being interested in office space, I don't know what use they're going to have for it. So we'll see. Okay. So obviously we've been in the news lately about Northville Downs. This is a project that we are going to take a very careful look at. Planning Commission is going to take it up on February 15th, which is their normally scheduled meeting. We have a ton of economic development projects underway, and so we're actually having 2 Planning Commission meetings in February to address all of these different and new projects. So we're going to set aside one night for Northville Downs. I have been sending out letters, which I've been CCing you on. One letter is basically just an outline of everything that's happening to date. The other letter, which I am now sending out today, is for the soccer folks, because the soccer community is very interested in this site. They are hopeful that the infield in the track could be used for community soccer. And it would be a great venue, especially with the stands the viewing stands that we see in the concept drawings.
Well, practice fields also
For sure.
Some of that wetland can be used for practice fields.
Not from what I've been told, because I was asked about the pond, the southern pond. I don't know would be suitable for that, but we would have to check to make that certain. I think it's more of a seasonal detention pond that might not always be useful. So we're going to do our due diligence. We have met with our attorney to consider a community benefit agreement, which would be in addition to what the Planning Commission decides to do. And again, we don't want to show all of our cards yet, but we certainly want to get a good deal. If this goes forward, we want a deal that everybody could be happy with.
How do we get the Planning Commission to talk about traffic lights and traffic flow?
Well, our planner is in the back. I don't want to put her on the spot, but these are all things that come up in the PUD process, and I believe that they still have to do a traffic study And, that would be part of the traffic study, I would assume. Remember, the land has already been approved by Wayne County. It's been approved by FEMA for flood control purposes. And of course, we've approved all of the utilities there too. So this is, I hate the word shovel-ready, but it's a shovel-ready site. Okay? All right, thank you. I need a motion to adjourn at
Motion to adjourn.
8:14. Motion by trustee Stewart, supported by clerk Borba. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.